We are live and recording. So good afternoon, everybody. Alex here, as usual, at the Festival of Enterprise. Thank you for joining me today. I'm joined by Joe Trodden. Joe is up in Edinburgh. How are you doing today, Joe?
I am awesome. How are you doing?
I'm very good indeed. Very good indeed. I'm down in Port in Dorset, which those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Those of you who are regular viewers here, thank you for joining us once again. So this is our live webinar today. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. Those of you who've signed up obviously seen that this is called the Inflection Point, making the transition from startup to organization. And Joe has worked with hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs from idea stage right through to investment raises, working with them to develop their mindset and create their unique path to success. So audience here, most of you I know are going to be business owners and entrepreneurs yourselves, and you're all going to be familiar with the different challenges depending on the stage of the journey that you're on with your business, from building your team, from first hire, leadership, you know, all the way through to building a board, etc. So Joe's going to share his knowledge of how that journey has developed for different types of entrepreneurs today, particularly focusing on the inflection point, which is broadly speaking around 10 employees and $1 million in revenue. So really looking forward to this personally, as well as sharing this with the audience, because I've been through all sorts of those journeys myself and currently on one as well. And I can see we're already joined. Adam said hello. Dr. Nick Owen, MBE, is saying hello as well from the Mighty Creatives. As always, I encourage you all to post up like Nick and Adam have already done. You know, we'd love to be with you in a face-to-face capacity. Joe and I were just, you know, talking about that before we jumped on here. And, you know, we're still hoping to bring live events this October at the NEC in Olympia, but we are, you know, waiting, as we all are, from the government guidance, doing some trials, etc., with live events. So, Christoph, thank you for joining us as well. Do post up any links like Nick's done for your website or your LinkedIn profile, like I've done earlier. Thank you, Paul, for joining us as well. Then please, thank you, Adam. Very good. Then do use this opportunity to connect and interact with each other, because that's what we'd normally be doing in a live face-to-face setting. So good afternoon to you too, Nigel. So I can see people piling in now. They had the notification. And I will check those of you joining us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to dive in here and make it a bit more interactive, then just register at festivalofenterprise.co.uk. You'll get an email with a link, which you just click and you'll dive straight in here. Otherwise, I'll be checking social media for questions for Joe as well. And the only housekeeping, I will literally point you in the direction of the comments box and pop any questions that you've got into the comments box there, so Joe and I can both see them as well. And like I said, I will be taking a look on social media to bring out any questions you have on there as well. And most popular question I get asked is, when is the replay available? So loads of you would have registered to watch in your own time, which is absolutely cool, obviously. And, you know, if you find value in watching this, then please share it. The replay is going to be up literally as soon as we finish up today. It literally takes about 10 seconds to get up and running, and you'll find that on here on Crowdcast, on the Festival of Enterprise website, and also again on the social media channels I mentioned before. So thank you for joining us. Philip, first time here, hashtag nervous new boy. I like it. Specialist in women's cycling kit. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Philip. Esther's joined us as well, and Paul Crook as well. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Without further ado, I think I'll hand over to Joe to introduce himself. We're going to have a mixture of Q&A and some slides to reinforce some points that Joe wants to make as well.
Cool. Okay, nice. Thanks, Alex. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for giving me your time to hear what I've got to say today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some slides and talk about a couple of key strategic principles at the inflection point. And then Alex and I are going to have a bit more of a chat about mindset, and hopefully we can make that a little bit more interactive as well, with any specific challenges that you might be facing, that maybe we could just tweak something and move something along for you. But first off, let's look at these slides.
Excellent. And yeah, like Joe says, any questions that you got, make it a bit more interactive. Pop them up any time at all. Just pop them in the chat box there, and we will be able to answer them for you. I'm just going to focus the screen on Joe's slides. There you go. I'm going to knock off my video so your focus is on Joe, and then I'll be here the whole time as well. So like I say, any questions, post them up there and we can answer them. So yeah, back over to you, Joe.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay. Everything visible, Alex, yeah?
Yeah, looks great.
Cool.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Okay, so the inflection point. First off, a little bit about me. So I have been a coach for around 8 years in a couple of different guises for the first couple of years of that. My focus has been on entrepreneurs for the last 6, and I have worked with over 300, as Alex noted, at all different stages, mostly in that startup to initial growth phase, some beyond that as well. But I chose to focus specifically on a particular client group, the guys who are at this inflection point. And where I specialize is in strategy and mindset development for those high growth entrepreneurs. And as we go through the session, we talk more about this. Hopefully it'll become apparent why there are changes that are required in those 2 areas as you go through this entrepreneurial journey. So first off, what is the inflection point? Well, the inflection point, and there are many, but the first that an entrepreneur will face, the curve on their journey looks a bit like this. So when you start off on that journey, you're the entrepreneur, you've got the idea, and if you've been on that journey, you know how tough it is initially to get anyone to listen to you, to get anybody to buy the things. But then if you've got an idea and you've got the customer, then you will hit a traction point. So you hit the traction point and then you start to make those sales and you get the initial growth. Now, in the entrepreneurs that I work with, that will not just involve revenue, but also starting to build out that team. Sometimes just to plug some gaps initially, but ultimately the team is starting to build out. You're starting to grow into an organization. But then you hit this plateau, and that growth really seems to slow down. Now, that happens typically, and it depends what you sell and what your margins are and so on, but typically around 500K to 1 million in revenue. The team is around 10, give or take, and there's definite growth potential in the business, but it's stalled. And if you're the entrepreneurial leader, what it feels like to you is that you're just spinning plates constantly. You're just, what's today's fire? Let's try and put that out. And also you can start to question the team. You know, are these really the people that are giving their all? Are they the ones that are going to get up to the next level? And you are spread so thinly across everything. You're still involved in most of the decision making. Ultimately, you are still at the epicenter of this business. And as it starts to grow outside of you, then that's when the challenges are going to occur. And what we're looking at this plateau, at this inflection point, is a change. Now, there is another S-curve that you will go through, and I'm purposefully not connecting the two because it is about a new approach. It is about assessing what's really going on in this business and how are we going to get up to that next growth phase. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but there will be another plateau. Now, I'm not the guy at plateau number 2. The point I want you to take here is that this is an absolutely natural part of the growth. And if you understand and appreciate these inflection points and you get used to the mindset of the shifts that are required, when you hit the first one, then you've got a much greater chance of getting through the next set because you'll have it in your mind about, okay, I can feel it's happening again. We need to make some moves here. The challenge when you hit that plateau is thinking more of the same is going to get you back into that growth phase because it's not going to do that. Now, what we're going to cover in the session, and I made a bit of a conscious choice here because this is obviously a massive topic. And when we're on webinars, I always like to try and give people some key takeaways. So I'm only going to cover 2 fundamental strategic principles that are really helpful to define at this inflection point. And then Alex and I will have a chat about this mindset shift for leaders that are at that point as well. I've no doubt he's seen plenty of that, and it'd be great to get that as an open discussion with you.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do is I go through the examples, and again, because I find this works well, is I'm going to give you a sort of a mock company to work with. Now, believe it or not, I designed that logo for myself. But Aventura is an organization that we'll just refer back to so that you've got extra context for the things that I'm talking about. So Aventura is a business that's at this inflection point. It's an adventure tours travel company. They offer tailored products. They're 4 years old with that 10 core employees and subcontracted guides. They had revenue of $1 million last year and they took away 300 customers. So they're doing pretty well, but they know that something needs to change. And obviously you have to understand the customer persona. So the persona for Aventura is Dave. He's about 33 years old. He's got a partner called Jessica, senior marketing position, very passionate about the outdoors. And he and Jessica take 2 10-day holidays a year, and they want to fill them with these interesting experiences. A very quick point on this, because this is sometimes something that entrepreneurs don't have at this inflection point, is that really in-depth persona. Now, this is obviously just a slide, but it should be everything that is going on inside their heads. I often find it's quite powerful to interview your staff as the persona. So say, okay, you be Dave, I'm going to interview you and understand more about your life, because it's really interesting how aligned everybody is as to exactly who we serve. So I've just put a few quotes there about Dave. You know, Dave is not a tourist, he's an adventurer. He wants to focus on the adventure and not get bogged down in the details. He's not looking for the cheapest thing, he wants the great experience. And Dave's all about the stories. He wants to have these authentic life experiences and this restful luxury. So when he goes away with Aventura, that he is going on that adventure, but he also wants to stay in a pretty nice hotel and chill out by the pool as well. He wants that full experience. So one of the first points I want to touch on is about the vision and the reassessment that takes place at the inflection point. The challenge with big visions is that they are really inspiring and really important, but for a team to deliver against the strategy, there has got to be a clear narrative, and this is something that's consistently missing at the inflection point. What happens is you've got now, and you've got the entrepreneur who's got the big vision, and then this disconnect in the middle. Now, when you're going on the first phase of that journey, that narrative's quite hard to tell anyway, because you've got so much pivoting, so many things are changing. When you write the story, it'll change a week down the line. But now that you've got that bit of stability, it's time to start filling in that narrative and connecting those 2 points. Because if you look at Aventura, say their vision, the big exit strategy, global travel business, 50 million in revenue, trade exit. If you're in that organization, if you're part of that team, you'll be asking those questions about, well, which countries? You know, what are the most important countries if we're a global travel business, and is there a big enough market there? What's my place in that story? Does the story even exist? When you only have the now and the big vision, which is what entrepreneurs are typically really good at, then those questions start to come in and it can lead to the confusion. What to instill in your strategic vision at this point when you're looking at how you go forward is something that I call the peak point. So the peak point is about this next vision point that is on your strategic roadmap. It has to have strategic relevance, and I'll explain what these things are. It has to be descriptive with metrics, and then this clear narrative from now to how you're actually going to get there. And this is what I mean about the different modalities of thinking between peak point and vision. Peak point is saying, from now, here is a clear story that everybody in this team can picture themselves as being a part of. And then after that, you've got the strategic direction towards the vision. The strategic direction piece typically isn't clear. It's typically just senses and things that you're going to try and explore. But as soon as you start to muddy that narrative, then the team will lose focus and people won't be sure what's going on. So you've got to put peak point in. And if we look at this in terms of Aventura, towards that peak point, at one stage, it was just run the first tour. Like, the vision is still the same. The strategic bets they're making, we're still saying that Dave's our customer. This is where we're trying to get to. But team, everybody, we just need to focus on that first tour and operational excellence. Deliver that tour as well as we possibly can so we can learn from it. Yes, the big vision exists, but here is where I want you to focus. And then as the business starts to develop, your peak point will change, but it's got to have strategic relevance. So if you look at that first tour, the strategic relevance there is, well, if we can't run one tour and we can't identify that customer, we're never going to be a global travel business. But then as you approach that point, the next peak point strategically for Aventura is, okay, well, we can do that. We know we can run a tour. But for us to be a global travel business, we need to go international. And actually, we want to ramp this up. We want to see if we can actually replicate that to a decent size of 100 clients going away towards our next peak point. And again, the operational excellence. Now you're saying to your team, focus on these things. Yes, those strategic bets still exist, but this is where the focus needs to be. Scout out the 5 international destinations. We don't need more than that. Focus on this 100 clients. Let's serve them exceptionally well. Let's get the operational excellence. And then as you move forward again, the peak point can change, 350 clients and 1 long haul destination. Strategically, again, we're focusing on that global travel business. So let's try a long haul. 350 clients is a good size for our organization to really stress test our model. And again, team, focus here. That thing exists beyond the peak point, but here's where I want you to focus. And then the final one that I've put in there, 700 clients, good size company, 15% net margin. The strategic importance, we want a trade exit. So we want to make sure that we're building up a big enough client base and we've got a little bit of margin going on in there that we are still attractive. But this is so important when it comes to getting your people to understand where we are going next. And it very seldom exists. Sometimes there is a 3-year plan and the milestones that are on that are like incremental. It just doesn't work like that. You know, it's thinking about this is probably where their next inflection point is going to come in terms of the size of the organization. Now, things are going to have to fundamentally change again. But having a focus point for your team will keep everybody aligned to what's going on, and it keeps that narrative clear. So when it comes to your peak point, make sure that it is descriptive with metrics. Make sure that you can paint the picture and that your team can actually relay that back to you. It typically will have a revenue target of some description and customer numbers, like something that's in there that is that measure of success. But the narrative is so, so important. If people can't tell the story, you end up back in that firefighting mode of what's today's problem? What are we doing today? What's going to happen next week? I don't know, because there isn't a story there. So Peak Point helps you to fill that out, and do make sure that it's got strategic relevance. So whether that is about a key partnership, a new market, organizational stability, proving the model, all of these different strategic milestones on that roadmap are fundamental proving points based on what your exit strategy is. So if you look at Aventura, we need to prove that we've got a customer first. Then actually, can we get into the right destinations? Can we get the margin to the right point? And it's not about worrying around every single point from where you are now. It's focusing on what's the next thing that we need to crack, where we need to be operationally excellent. So make sure you get your peak point in there. It will really help with clarifying things in your people's minds. The second point I wanted to talk about was something called core capabilities. Now, core capabilities comes from this guy, A.G. Lafley. It's in this book, Playing to Win. It's a bit of an older book, but it's definitely worth the read if you're interested in strategy. He makes some brilliant points in it. This is all about saying that there is so much that is going on in your business at this point that you need to consider 3 to 5 things that you need to be excellent at doing to create and maintain your market advantage. Now is the time to actually be focusing down on what is this company? You know, where are we going to create the value? Who are we going to serve brilliantly and why? What's really going on? Sometimes in that first stage up to the initial plateau, initially you can be taking almost any client, But then you need to think about, how does where we are now tie into that exit strategy? And what's the next peak point? What are these core capabilities that we're going to have to build in? Let me just give you a quick example of what I mean. If you look at Procter and Gamble, plenty of other businesses are in that fast-moving consumer goods space. They're not saying we're the only people in this space. They need to think about what actually is the advantage that we had. Now, for A.G. Lafley, at the time, it's all about speed to market. That's the fundamental thing that makes them maintain their position. So how are they going to do that? What are the things that they need to focus down on? Innovation was the first thing. So yes, every business does need to innovate, but if your whole business's premise is about speed to market, then you need to be innovating faster than your competitors. So you start to build that in as a core capability. You start to talk about that at your board meetings. You start to source people that are relevant to that core capability. So they created their own innovation process called Connect and Develop. But they also recognized that there was a risk they could fall into groupthink, where they get too sucked in internally to what's going on. So they focus on innovation partners as well, and half of their new brands and innovation come from here. So you look at an organization like Procter and Gamble, what is it that we need to do to maintain that competitive advantage? What are the things we need to start building in? Innovation for us. How are we going to do that? This is the stuff that's happening when they're talking around the boardroom table. These are the things that they're measuring against. How's the innovation process going? Are we building that capability in? And the second thing that they had to look at was brand building. So if they are going to be fast to market, for them, a lot of the time, it was about being first in a customer's mind, being dominant. Now, when A.G. Lafley took over Procter & Gamble, they did a lot of stuff. They did the bathroom goods, they did health and beauty, they were doing pharmaceuticals, they owned Pringles, dog food. They even had dog food on the books. But he was looking at this saying, well, if we're going to brand build, we can't do that across all of these ranges, because these are very different markets. You know, the dog food market, okay, it's a brand, but it's going to be a very different market to health and beauty, to being in the bathroom, to being in the kitchen. The pharmaceutical brands, they're going to be built very differently as well. And we just don't know what to do with Pringles. You know, we don't have any other food brands in there. So what they did was sell them. They just got rid of them. And even the ones that were profitable, because they recognized that if we stay in those markets, it's going to pull us away from this brand building capability that we need to build in to be fast to market in these segments. And you often hear that thing about it's the things that you say no to. This is so important at that inflection point, because an entrepreneurial mind up to that stage, in my experience, is all about opportunity. Like, let's take opportunity there, let's see it, let's maximize it, go next thing, next thing. And it's quite hard to shift into saying, we're not going to do that. You know, that, hey, there's money to be made there. That looks attractive. That looks exciting. a bit magpie at times even. But being able to say, no, that's not what we need to do. That's not what we're building into our organization. Massively powerful. And again, it's all about focus and how you're building your organization. And the last one for Procter & Gamble was about strategic partnerships. Because again, think about what they're trying to do. Speed to market. We can't get to that unless we get in front of our customers. So it was all about the partnerships. Now, Procter & Gamble gets 15% of its revenue, or about 10 billion from Walmart. And again, the speed to market here is about exposure. It was about in-store testing of products, about consumer intelligence. So the only way that they can get fast to that market is with these strategic partnerships, getting really close to the people that have got their core customers. And the beauty of this, to feed into their other capacity around brand building and around innovation, is to get the feedback from them. They had such great relationships with people like Walmart and some other partners that they could go in there and test pricing. They can go in there and work with the customers, because ultimately Walmart know if we get new products in, products that these customers are wanting to buy, it'll pull them back into Walmart. So it's a win-win. But again, you're sitting around your boardroom table going, tell me about our strategic partnerships. Talk to me about innovation. How are we with that? How are we building that capacity? How are we staying on top of our brand building? Where are we with our strategic partnerships? It's all about the focusing on the right things. So if you look at those core capabilities, I encourage you to really sit down and think about building those in, and what do they actually mean for you. So innovation at Procter and Gamble, we see that gap in the market. We can create our products quickly. We can disrupt ourselves before our competitors do, and we can maintain that market relevance for now and next. Disrupting themselves was so important for them too, because they've already got the shelf space. They've already got that market share. They know the customers. So why not keep disrupting yourself? The brand building, to be able to speak to the emotional as well as the functional needs of our customers, clear product offerings, building trust with the customer base. They even had such expertise that they knew how to position the brands in different countries. So in certain countries, I believe it was in Italy, they stopped saying that this will make your life easier to people who are buying cleaning products, because there was a set of customers in that country that actually wanted to feel that cleaning was a bit hard, that they'd done a good job. So they had to really think about how we're going to position it with them. And it's that depth of knowledge and understanding your customer base that means they can go fast to that market. They can get into the market because we understand the language that those people are looking for. And then those strategic partnerships, about this preferential support on the supply chains, about access to customers, about extending their global reach quickly. So think about it. Procter and Gamble, we innovate. We've got a brand. We need to get out to the market quickly. Now, you could argue that most companies need to do some of these things. But when you think about an organization the size of Procter and Gamble, there's a million things to do. And you'll feel that at the inflection point as well. There's a million things to focus on. But if they do those three things exceptionally well, that's how they maintain the market advantage. So again, if we stick with our Aventura example, remember, what does Dave look for? Dave wants that authentic experience. So we need to make sure we've got the right local partnerships. Our customers want authentic experience. How are we creating win-wins there? Because we want our customers to feel like they're Aventura's close friends. It's all this one community. So somebody talk to me about how we're maintaining our local partnerships. Where is our innovation going to come from in terms of extending those and deepening those? Storytelling. So our customers want to be able to tell stories. We need to be able to align with them and make that part of what we do. And it's our best form of marketing. This is what Dave wants. So tell me, how are we building that capacity into our organization? Are we bringing storytellers in? Are we sending people to our partners to talk about it? Because if we crack two of those things, we're going to stay in Dave's mind the whole time. And customer communication. Dave wants us to take care of stuff. He doesn't want to be having to, search through the website or phone some really awkward customer service. Dave wants to be on the pulse. So what have we got? Have we got an app that's going to make sure that all of his stuff is maintained within that? He needs to know that we are on it, that he's got everything he needs from us. We are taking care of you, Dave. We've got all of the details. So again, if you're thinking about your customer, where your organization is and what it's going to take to get up to the next level, your core capabilities is something that's probably not been discussed. And it's not just saying we need to be better at sales, we need to be better at marketing. You do need to be better at those things. But this is what's going to set you apart. This is what's going to build that value in. You become the best storytellers, then other travel companies are going to be playing catch up. It's the same as Amazon. One of their core capabilities being about their logistics. Nobody can touch that now because Jeff Bezos insisted that they reinvest in that. People want it faster. They want the convenience. Invest there. Build that capability. Build it into everything that we're doing. And that's how they maintain that market position. Partnerships is critical for Amazon as well. They wanted to create that convenience. So they partnered with people before they start bringing the best lines in to their own warehouses. So this is one of the key strategic pillars to really start thinking about how do we build this value in? What are these things to focus on? And when you check this out with your team, and if your board, if you have one, and you shoot at the inflection point, it's checking that alignment. Are we all talking about the same things? Are we all bringing in these core capabilities to build that value towards the exit? So there are loads of things. I've just put a couple of the points there that, when I'm working with clients, it's about this modular approach to developing your strategies. You're talking about that persona, the depth of that. How does this funnel actually work? What's the customer journey? The core capabilities, how are they being built into our funnel and our customer journey? You look at those core elements of, sales and marketing, product, infrastructure. What are your metrics that are around there? And something called the 3-line strategy to help you to focus on those. But if you remember the point I made from earlier, and this is why Peak Point matters so much, that you're trying to become operationally excellent at some of these core components in the journey towards Peak Point. That's what provides the focus. So you're at your inflection point. Let's nail this strategy down towards our next peak point. But you're also having those discussions about the strategic bets. So the capabilities we're building in now, do we still think they're the right things? Is it still going to be that customer when we go up to the next level? Is there going to be a diversification? Does that make sense? Does it pull our focus away? But they're very different discussions. So by making this break point on your strategic roadmap, you've got the focus on operational excellence, all these components, let's know what's going on with them, and you can pull them over to a different type of discussion between Peak Point and Vision Point with a different set of people normally. So that's essentially two of the key components to think about that inflection point, where you've come through your initial growth, you've had the traction, get the initial growth, you're at that plateau. To go into that next growth phase, so much is about focus. And that's why, and still in that peak point, getting everybody on board with the narrative, making sure that those core capabilities are metriced and measured and built on within the organization to help you go through that next phase. That's what's going to help you jump over the inflection point and get to your next growth phase, when you will hit that plateau again. But the principles that we're talking about here, you can take on and keep building on as you go through your journey. So that's the two strategic principles. I'm going to stop talking there because that's quite a lot for me. It's quite a bit of information. But if you build those two in, you'll have some of the fundamental strategic pillars that you're going to need to get through that inflection point.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed. Got some questions for you if you're happy to take questions now.
Sure.
Joe. Okay. Thank you. Those of you who've commented as well. Andy saying it's never been more crucial to own your customer, which has never been easier through data capture. Dr. Nick Owen say thinking space has been at a premium for sure. Paul says, question, how to look at the external drivers and place these into context of structures, systems, and people inside the company.
I think that the key thing for me there is that if you have those pillars in place, then you've got an area of focus. What happens at the inflection point often is that there's so much to think about. Like there's almost too much to think about, and there isn't any point of focus to go, it's definitely this person. It's definitely this thing that we want to deliver to them. Like what's affecting that core capability that we're trying to build in? What is it externally that's going to impact that? Are these things still going to be relevant? How do we become better storytellers? What about Amazon's logistics? What's happening in the outside world? So drones are coming in. Okay, when can we apply that drone technology? It's all about, if you understand what those fundamental principles are, then you can run that as the filter for the things that are coming from the outside, rather than just being sort of hit by this tidal wave of everything. You've got the points of focus.
Yeah, interesting one. I thought, how many ideal client avatars or customer personas are you thinking in terms of? Again, like you said earlier, I've spoken to hundreds of entrepreneurs for the podcast and on the webinars, and it's interesting. Like when I was, just as an example, when I was chatting to Rowena Bird, co-founder of Lush, and I was saying, 25 years on. When you set that company up and you thought who your ideal customer avatar was, do you realize 25 years later, it's my kids, 9 and 11 years old, spending all their pocket money on bath bombs, So it's always interested to know, no matter, whether you've got $1 billion business like they've got now, or somebody, going from startup to scale mode. What are you kind of looking at, Joe, do you think, to get that focus? Because again, it's difficult. You could be thinking of a whole bunch of different ideal client avatars as well.
So the key thing for me is that you make it a real person. You know, when I see personas that are abstractions, are incredibly hard to deal with, and then also incredibly hard for your team to actually get a connection to. You know, so they're actually thinking about them. You know, there are times where we've actually had them on the wall of a business to go, it's this, and see if we get to a point where it's not, or you hear something that it's not, or you're speaking to a customer, let's talk about it, because that's so important. Now, of course, you can have as many as you like, but it's more about what's the commonality. Like, it doesn't really matter how old Dave is, or if he's male or female, or what his job is, or like the key thing there is somebody who wants that type of adventure.
Yeah.
So you'll find there's a common thread. The thing is, if you try and go, well, we'll serve Dave with that sort of luxury adventure experience, but we'll also try and compete with Expedia and offer this sort of low budget, you just start to, at that point in the entrepreneurial journey, it becomes too much to manage. That's why I'm saying, for me, it's about saying that we're not doing this. You know, here's the stuff that we're doing, and here's what we're not doing. And that is a leadership mindset shift as well, because it's been opportunity, great opportunity. Actually, let's now focus.
Yeah, I know. I always think back to, I think it was a live event we did with the founders of Candy Kittens, the sweet brand, Jamie Lang and Ed Williams. And I always remember them saying, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago now, that every Monday, the first thing they do in the office is they look at their customer persona, and it's like Chloe from Clapham, who's 24, works in PR. What films is she watching this week? What books she reading this week?
Sure.
What's she looking at on Instagram? And I can kind of visualize that, and it just makes it a lot more real. And I think the fact that they do that with their whole team, as you said earlier, you can get that buy-in, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the discussion where we've gone in and the sales team think it's something different to what the CEO thinks. And they're the ones that are talking to them all the time, you know? So that's fine. So we just go, okay, let's just reset, because you get that tunnel vision. Just to pick up, and I noticed Nick's making a point there on the terminology. When I'm talking about the inflection point, Nick, it's that plateau. So we've come through and we've got this connection. We've got this connection with our customers. We've started to sell to them. And now it's about what's the peak point from here. So it's almost like standing on that plateau and going, now we actually do need to formalize the strategy. Because the one that's at the start is probably well in the shredder by now. Yeah. And if you want to put down the right strategic roadmap, sometimes what they can do there is go, well, let's do this 3-year, 5-year thing. And nobody can follow that narrative. So if we stand on the plateau and go, right, what's the vision? Is it still the same? Cool. What's the next peak point? So that's how peak point and the inflection point sit together.
Nice. Christoph says, thanks, Joe, some great wisdom. Should we plan for a peak point or just look out for when we've reached it? Nice question.
No, plan for it. Definitely plan for it, Christoph. Yeah, what you want to do there is to really formalize that and think about a strategic relevance to your vision. Because again, that first part of the journey, it is let's just get something to stick. You know, the systems typically are quite cobbled together. Everybody's just doing a bit of everything, but there comes a point where you're just going to be stuck in that loop. So if you set a peak point, then you can go, right, this is what we're actually going to work towards. You're going to be doing this. We're going to pull this person in to do that. And it starts to clarify the narrative for everybody. You probably meant the inflection point. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Too many points, I guess, there. Yeah. So the inflection point it's an interesting question, because you sometimes don't know that you're hitting it until you're actually there. But you feel it because of that whole spinning plates thing. Like, the entrepreneurial leaders are when I say you're spinning plates, you've got more growth potential, but you know, you are starting to kind of doubt and question the team. You don't feel that you're making that growth. So it's a fair point. I would actually say that, yeah, typically they're in it before they realize it. But once you're there, you really feel it, because now it's not as exciting anymore. You feel like you're kind of drudging, you're just fighting fires all the time. So yeah, it's knowing that it will come is an interesting thing to consider, but you probably won't know it until you're in it. Yeah, no, and as you said earlier, you know, that's a real common one from entrepreneurs that I speak to, and you know when you're in it and you feel like you're always spinning play. I mean, a friend of mine
I was chatting to at the weekend. It was a £20 million business, and I went into his car dealership last week, and he's still there inputting the details for each car, sweeping the forecourt, and I'm like, I can't believe you're still doing that. 5 years ago, I told you, get somebody in to manage this, to manage that, and it's almost like they can't see the wood for the trees. They still like doing these different bits of the business, but they're doing so many different bits of it, they can't take that step away and actually, like you say, plan for that point to reach.
And it depends where they want to get to. Do you know, like, if you could get to a point where you're at that inflection point, right? And you go, do you know what? I like it. I like being 10 people. I like just serving this, this amount of customers. I like being involved in everything. Cool. But what you're talking about is, if you do want to go up to that next level, you need to think about where you add the most value. It's probably not inputting the data, right? Exactly. I mean, one of the key challenges is letting go, because that initial team typically is reasonably junior, because you've been filling gaps and whatever you could afford. You don't have many A players in there. You don't have a lot of people that are challenging you that strongly as the founder and CEO. There's a bit of a halo effect going on with you, and you start to internalize that as you are the all-seeing eye, and you're still involved in everything, and I'll help them out here. What can be really good is if you think about a function at the business at that point, and how much of that are you willing to let go? So you could say a sales function, right? Say you've got a sales target of 100,000 a quarter, for example. You could say to the salesperson, right, your target's 100,000 a quarter, go, like, you do it. Or you can say it's 100,000 a quarter, here's your target list, here's exactly how you speak to them, here's your calendar for when you're going to speak to them, here's the script. Like, you can just do that. But all you're doing there is disempowering them and taking away the control.
Yeah.
But it's how much do you let go at once? It's really rare to be able to let go of the whole thing. But if you actually think about, what am I willing to sort of let go? Where do I let go? And let that person make mistakes and learn for themselves. And, they have a bad call, and just like you did on your entrepreneurial journey, founder, being much more conscious about that type of stuff is a shift in the leadership mindset.
Got a bunch of questions that have come through on the private tab as well. Andy says, do you not get to a customer persona through segmentation? So that was going back to our earlier discussion.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah. And what's Paul put? Question 2, exit strategy, ? And then follows that up with, how do we fit data analysis and information systems? P&G budgets just on this is immense to the plateaus. How to look at selling more to existing customers or creating new customers? How does this fit to the inflection point, and what needs to be changed or developed to move along the plateau climb to the next vision? Big question.
It is pretty big. Yeah, can you just summarize that one?
Yeah, I'm going to copy and paste it and put it up as well. So Paul says, how do we fit data analysis and information systems? P&G budgets just on this is immense to the plateaus. How to look at selling more to existing customers or creating new customers, ? And how does this fit to the inflection point, and what needs to be changed or developed to move along to the next vision?
Cool. So a couple of points there. If you're talking about creating new customers, again, this just depends on what's the capability we're trying to build in, and what's the strategic end game here. The point I'm talking about on the journey is about, like, owning that customer. It's about developing that relationship so you are the number one, which gives you more opportunity to sell them more products or give them, like, a deeper level of offer. You look at the core capability that someone like Aventura is trying to build in there. How do we make that experience richer? How do we deepen that? How do we could get more margin by saying, hey, Dave, we've got, an exclusive island hotel coming up, a total castaway is 5 times the price. So test that. Is that something that Dave would want as a luxury? It's all to do with, like, how close you can get to them. I mean, I appreciate when you use an example like P&G and you say about their budgets to do that, but this is about focus. So what are those data points? How are you going to collect them? How close do you get to your customers? How often do you survey them? What are the feedback loops like? And there's always somebody who's got a bigger budget or, you know, a more developed system of doing it. So how do you do that towards your next peak point? Where do you build in those feedback loops? You talk about, I don't want to go down, I'm risking going down a rabbit hole here and just overloading a bit. But if you look at that customer journey, you know, when that's mapped out, you can understand, well, where are the feedback points? Where are the points we can add more value? How do we enrich their life at those? What happens at the back end of the customer journey? You know, where's the upsell? What's the thing that's happening there? So it's quite a big question, but again, if you put those strategic principles in place, and you can go online, there's a free course that I've got there as well that covers these in depth. You can start to focus on, you know, where do we add the value?
A couple more questions. Thank you for your comments as well, Adam. Planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. Absolutely. And customer feedback and what could benefit you and them at the same time. And then Nick says, we've decided recently to have half-term weeks 3 times a year. Not that we're a school or anything, but we're seeing them as places to rest, reflect, go off timetable, stop spinning plates. They sound like our potential peak points. That's an interesting one. Like it. Seeing if I've missed any others as well. And interesting, I was reading, talking about it yesterday, a LinkedIn post from My Protein founder, who I had on podcast recently. And he posted up saying, like, during lockdown, 200,000 new businesses have been started. I thought you meant like worldwide, but you're saying just in the UK. What do you think for those people who are starting a business at this time, when it comes to mindset and leadership and prioritizing? Where would you be looking for your main priority? Because again, like the common kind of misconception, I guess, is that you start a business, you go, okay, this is my 10-year plan. And like you say, before you know it, there any resemblance to the current journey you're on.
Yeah.
But maybe some learnings from there could be helpful, because I know a lot of the viewers that we've picked up throughout the last 3 or 4 months have been very much those at the start of their journey and those who are literally going from startup to scale up. So that kind of like couple of £1 million turnover maybe.
Look, it depends on what it is that they're trying to build. But if you are like bootstrapping a company, my thing is always pick a customer and serve them brilliantly. A mistake that is being made at times is this is what people should be doing. Well, that's great. You know, like, here's a new fitness app because obesity, blah, blah, you know, like here's a way to solve a problem, but people have to want to solve it. So if you are at the start of your journey, you need to really consider your early adopter curve, which is, if you Google that, you'll be able to read behind it. But ultimately, finding the people who are trying to solve this problem at the moment. It's not enough that a problem is there. Look, when you start a business, you could have a business that fixes broken arms and walk up to somebody with a broken arm and they go, no, I'm all right, I'm all right. Like, I don't know, you are. There's going to be a really small set of customers that you can grab in the initial stages, and it's about serving them really well. It's going to take much longer than you think. Your first plan is wrong. You've got to be open to feedback, and it's not working. Like for me, Alex, there's a particular type of mind that gets through that point. And it's to do with the relationship to failure. See, I don't like that, right? I come in at the inflection point because I want certainty. My mind craves certainty. I can't build that thing, you know, this like an Aventura, because I don't like the uncertainty. I want to come in at the end, and that's why they need me there, because the thing that entrepreneur's not got, I have. So then I can help you to put those things in place. I don't teach them to do that. I say these things exist. If you think they're important, I'll work with you and we'll create them. Not I will teach you to do it, because they can't. It's the same way as somebody trying to teach me to be a brilliant networker. It's never going to work because I'm too intense. Do you know? I'm too intense and I'm too hyper functional. So it's playing to strengths. But if you're on the start of that journey, the best thing I can say is like find a customer and overserve them. Like really get to know them deeply.
And interesting, well, like Nick, something I was going to mention as well. Nick's just brought up strategic partnerships as well. Again, it's going to depend at what stage, but how soon on would you start looking at things like, because people have scaled businesses just by focusing on strategic partnerships from day one, haven't they?
Sure. So if you identify that one, who the strategic partnership's actually with and why they want to partner with you, like, again, you'll get these things of, somebody will come out of the ether that creates some partnership with whoever, like, a supermarket or a big tech company or something like that. What you don't hear about is the thousands that are trying to do that and can't get past the gatekeeper. It's really focusing down on who is it going to be with, and the bigger the company, the harder that's going to be. And if you're in the early stages, like, is your value proposition clear enough? Like, if you got something of value to them, why do they want you? Like, what is it that you're going to bring? How are you creating a win-win? You look at the Walmart situation, that's clear how that works for them, right? If you look at the Aventura, and I work with travel companies, that whole thing about, actually, it's that guide. It's Jose, the guide, that we want a strategic partnership with, and we can get them because all I've got to tell Jose is, I will bring you customers. If you treat them in this way, I will bring you customers. So that's another example of looking at the far side. Who wouldn't want to partner with Amazon because they've got the massive reach? But who brings Amazon value? You look at the Aventura at the early stage, all we need is Jose, and we've got something that we can start to build on. So it's thinking about the win-win. How do you create the win-win, and when is going to be the right time to go for it?
And for you yourself, do you work across a whole range of different industries, or you focus on a particular type of industry, particular type of market, Joe?
It's the inflection point. I don't really care what industry they're in. I don't work with many tech companies, tech-enabled businesses, but not where tech's the core proposition. Not that I wouldn't. It's just that that's not what my core customer is. But the key thing for me is that they're at the inflection point and they want to change. Like, when I say it feels like you're spinning plates and you're questioning your team, you've got that extra revenue potential, and you know that you are part of the problem. Okay, let's talk. See if any one of those isn't true, there's nothing we can do together. Because I can't, sometimes I'll get asked to go in and like fix my people almost, there's something wrong with their mindset. Go and fix my people. It's not that, man. Like, it's the whole thing. Sometimes it's part of the people as well. But you'd be surprised how often that's because they don't know what the narrative is. There isn't a focus. I don't know, am I doing a good job or not? And now, because you're the all-seeing eye, anything you say, I don't feel I've got ownership. Like, that stuff is going on. But the entrepreneur's part of the problem. I mean, somebody mentioned, I think it was Andy was talking about, you can't get to scale micromanaging staff. That wasn't, I didn't mean to say that, when I was using that line to come in. It was more about, like, what are you actually going to give them? Because if your staff are at a point where you can only give them that, you're going to own that function forever, and you're not going to be able to scale. But you can give them that, and then this and this and this, or you get the A player in, which is even better, to go, now you own that function. So yeah, it's always about like the specific stage, and the leader has to be open to what I'm talking about. And
have you ever, because I've heard this in at least one of the interviews I've done before, where the board of a company have asked you to come in, whereas the actual founder, CEO, isn't actually ready to change, doesn't even want to change, yet they've said, can you come in and have a chat, because this is the roadblocks we've got at the moment, and we want to get from here to here. And then you've had that chat with the founder, CEO, who they want you to work with, and they don't want to change.
I've had it that people have got me in to work with a leadership team and say, yeah, but I don't want we just want the plan. I don't want you to address any of the underlying issues.
Love it. That's
because it's too sensitive for them. Like, nobody wants to open Pandora's box. But I can't take that as a piece of work. Like, I wouldn't believe in what I'm doing, and it will not work, because all that will happen is we get a plan that nobody's bought into. There's no ownership, and everybody's still knifing each other. So forget it. There's enough good people out there to work with. I think the problem for a consultant is when you take a bit of work like that. And I've taken work that's maybe been misaligned in the past, because you think, oh, maybe I can help, or but it just pulls you away from developing yourself into becoming the master, for the right client. Yes, it's funny that. Yeah, so somebody else really needs this. All right.
Yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, I've just posted up last questions. I literally taken 2 pages of notes myself. I can't believe how quickly that's actually gone. I can't believe we're actually 4 minutes shy of the hour. So Nigel says, thanks, Joe. Really interesting.
Welcome, Nigel.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look on social. So any other questions? I think I might have grabbed as many as I could. But in case I haven't, best place to get hold of you, Joe. And I can email from this system. We can send everybody who registered an email, whether they registered to watch it in their own time or whether they've been on here live. So we can follow that up anyway. But best place to find out more information, Joe, how people can work with you?
Yeah, if they go to josephtrodden.com, and they can see everything that I do there. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Joe Trodden. The key thing I would say as well is that there isn't a hard sell. Hopefully that's come across, because I can only add value to a certain type of entrepreneur at a particular point on their journey. So it's all about, are we a good match for each other? So yeah, any conversation is on that basis around, like, am I the guy? And if I'm not, I will tell you.
Brilliant. I've just posted up the website, and there's your LinkedIn profile as well. Philip, many thanks both. Very useful and relevant to where we're currently at. Thank you very much indeed, Philip. Christoph, thanks, Joe. A lot covered in a short time. I know, and I can't believe how quickly that's probably felt like the quickest webinar I've done, which is bizarre, isn't it? I guess it's because I'm so interested. Yeah, exactly. And I've written down so many notes. I'm going to watch the replay again, because I think I probably missed half of it, pitching the questions. But no, really enjoyed that. And what we'll do as well, Joe, is we will put this out on, as kind of said earlier in the emails, put it out on the Screw It, Just Do It podcast, which we're out in 146 countries now as well. So put that out to everybody, because I think this is massively relevant, massively valuable to a lot of people. I mean, I suppose a lot of us have had the time to, reflect and look back on over the last 4 months. But equally, I've spoken to people who've literally said they thought they were busy before, and they've been even busier over the last 4 months. So they haven't had that time to kind of reflect on where they are, what point in the journey they're at. Any as we draw to a close, any last thoughts or anything you'd like to leave people with, Joe?
Just be honest about your own mindset, like understanding yourself. What you like, mindset for me isn't the yoga pose on a cliff in this, with the sunset and all that stuff, right? And then an Instagram quote. Like, mindset for me is everything about how you perceive the world. And it is so important to understand how you think, because it impacts everything that you're going to do, and the ripple effect out through your organization is huge. There is no one leadership style. There is your leadership style. So understand your own mindset. You can start with a Myers-Briggs test, 16personalities.com, totally free, but it goes so much deeper than that. And it's just the level. Your success is going to be proportionate to how well you understand yourself. So make sure that that's high on your agenda if you're an entrepreneurial leader.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Loads of great comments coming in. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Yeah, only thing I'll leave you with again is what I said at the start. If you've enjoyed this, as many of you have, and you found value in it, literally send the link to others to come back and watch a replay here, because it will be here in perpetuity here at the Festival of Enterprise, and also on our social media. But we have got everything archived on a specific platform for past webinars as well. So Joe, pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll follow up again just to let you know when we're putting it out on the podcast and get some more promotional materials to put some artwork together for that as well. So cool. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye now. Bye, everybody.